Hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Hope you are all doing well. Sorry, as I get settled in. Welcome. Alright, I think I have everything here. Got my notes. All is good. I think maybe I'll do that just to even myself out a little bit. Maybe even bring this. There we go. There we are. What is up, everyone? I hope you are all having a great weekend. The weekend's pretty much done now, but yeah. Hey, everybody. It was a short week on General Hospital, so it's going to be a shorter live stream. Whether you tune in now or tune in later, thank you so much for joining us. There's still enough to talk about, but it'll still be probably a shorter live stream. But yeah, what's up, everybody? Welcome to General Hospital After Show. It was a very short week in Port Charles, like I said, because baseball in the States is a big thing, I guess. But we're going to talk about GH nonetheless. There's three main things that happened on the show. Lucky is now back in Port Charles. We have Lucas Jones returning to the show and is back in Port Charles and living there as well. And we have Ava and Portia teaming up because of Portia's mini crime that she has committed. So, you know, some juicy tidbits for a short week. Not a bad week. In my head, I'm just remembering I didn't add notes to one particular scene, but I'll bring it up before we end the live stream as well. But yeah, we'll get into it. As I was saying, Lucky Spencer is officially back in Port Charles, and he went straight to GH to get tested to see if he was a match for Lulu. Spoiler alert, he is. And I think he has to go through some more tests before he gets the for sure to be able to donate his liver to Lulu. But we'll see. So the first person he runs into, aside from Jason, is Carly. And after the warm welcome and the hugs, Lucky makes it a point to mention that he's sorry he didn't get back to Carly's email about Bobby dying and not attending the funeral. It was short, but to the point, I suppose. But I do hope that we get scenes in the future of him maybe alone somewhere and just reflecting on not just Bobby but Luke as well, because we really haven't gotten to see Lucky's reaction to Lucky, or I mean, sorry, not to Lucky, to Bobby or to Luke for that matter. And hey, Sandy. Hey, Angel. Oh yeah, I know, Angel. Again, when Grotesquerie is over, then I'll have like a full stream talking about the full series. I'm glad that we're getting 2 episodes at a time though, for the record, just because, you know, it's a messed up. The show is messed up. Like, we're seeing a lot of Spencer's ass, or Nicholas's ass, I should say. You know, Ryan's taking full advantage of Nicholas's body, so I can't really blame him. Of course, it's gonna make people thirsty as hell for him. And it's so funny, like, I've seen, like, even my old roommate from Ontario who, like, knows next to nothing about GH, literally nothing. The only thing he probably knew about GH is that I watched it. Okay, like, and he's like openly gay, and like, just like, he'll like shamelessly post like hot dudes and TV shows and hot celebrities and all this stuff on his page. And there's so much of Nicholas, and I just like laughed and be like, you know, should I get bragging rights for knowing who he was 3 years before everybody else did? Soap fans. Appalled and slightly disgusted. Well, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to like say too much spoilers, just for anyone that maybe hasn't seen the 2 episodes that aired this week just yet. What is with the man's booty cheeks being out? You know, funny enough, like, and I suppose this can be probably true in like this sort of like heterosexual kink world too, but like it's so common in like the gay scene to see like those kind of outfits at like a party for like in like gay nightclubs. Like there's just always asses being out and leather parties and like, you know, those kind of things. Although the you know, the backlashes, literal backlashes, are probably the most disturbing part for me. But yeah, it's Grotesquerie is a show not for the weak stomach as well, because there's a lot of disturbing murder scenes. Not that we see the murders play out, but just like the aftermath is so disturbing. It's all good, Kaiwan. All right, but back to GH. We'll get into that too, Sandy. So yeah, like I was saying, I think that I want to see Lucky have scenes just on his own to reflect about the loss of Bobby and the loss of Luke. There's a side of me that wants to see perhaps a scene with like the ghost of Luke and Lucky maybe interacting and Tony coming back for a little bit, but we'll see. But yeah, so Lucky, he also, after sharing a scene with Carly, he has a scene with Faceless Lulu, and he brought his A game like only Jonathan Jackson could, crying and talking about how he's a bad brother and how he wasn't there to protect her, how maybe she wouldn't have ended up in a coma if he was there, or how he, even if she did get into a coma, he could have saved her sooner than her being at death's door. But man, she's hanging in there. Like, she's been in dire straits, so to speak, for like a couple of months now. So I don't know. She's hanging in. The next person he runs into, though, is Elizabeth, rightfully so. It was awkward, but also fitting that they reunited at Bobby's, formerly known as Kelly's, where they first met, and we even got a flashback of that scene for good measure. Yeah, Angel, right there. We got to see flashbacks. We even got to see a flashback of Lulu and Lucky as well. Baby Lulu, when Lucky was just a baby himself. But yeah, a lot of his and Elizabeth's scenes had to do with Aiden, obviously having a conversation about expectations and you know what she's gonna tell Aiden, or what he's gonna tell Aiden rather. So, and you know, hopefully fixing their relationship. We do have a new Aiden, who had some very sweet scenes with Elizabeth prior to her reunion with Lucky. Obviously, she gave Aiden the heads up that Lucky would be coming back to town. And the gist of how Aiden feels about Lucky is that he has zero expectations about Lucky. He doesn't think he's staying. He knows he came for Lulu. And for the most part, he doesn't give his father a second thought most days, which honestly is pretty on brand. Like, to, I think, those kind of like distant father-son relationships. And honestly, it's, him and my sort of story are quite similar. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I haven't seen my dad since I was a baby. We kept in touch online for many years until we didn't. Most of it was me being the first contact or the first one to reach out. And I once was also a baby teenage gay like he was. Now, I'm a grown-up gay. I am curious, like you, Sandy, if Lucky is aware of Aiden's sexuality. We do know he was open and honest with Elizabeth and with Finn. With no hesitation. I know Lucky wouldn't take issue with it. There's no question of that in my brain, but I do think it'll take a lot for Aiden to open up to Lucky about not just that, but anything. Especially if Lucky doesn't end up being open with Aiden about what he's been through and why he's been away. I think Lucky needs to be honest with Aiden if he's gonna build a relationship with him, and just be open about what he experienced. Because if we go by the notion of the last time we seen Aiden and Lucky interact in person, Aiden was a baby. I think that there's a chance that we do know that Lucky's been in town multiple times, many years ago still at this point, but he's probably seen him since he was, at least once or twice as like a kid that could form sentences, What are y'all saying in the chat though? Lucky probably don't know nothing about his son. Yeah, I'm sure their conversations weren't like in depth, you know what I mean? In their like webcam chats or whatever. Oh, you hate Kaiwan. You hate that they're not really having Lucky acknowledge the other kids, which I think is fair too, because what we've seen when Lucky was on screen with Elizabeth's kids is that he really stepped up in the role of all of their fathers. Obviously, he had to pretend to be Jake's real father for the time that Jake was alive before he had quote unquote died, and Lucky was the one to rescue him. And then he also, he had a really good relationship with Cam when he was a baby as well. So it is a bit weird to not see him really talk about them, but also Jake and Cameron aren't even in town. So we're not going to see them interact at all. Make a new Aiden because the old one was too young looking. I don't know. Like, Aiden's supposed to be the baby brother out of all three of them, so it makes no sense that they want to make him look older. Like, I think they've aged him to be in high school. I don't know how they're aging him, though. Wonder what they will have Aiden doing since the actor is an adult. Yeah, I think the actor is 20. But they're having him play a high schooler. So I don't know. I think maybe they just wanted someone with a bit more experience under their belt. I don't really know the previous Aiden's, work, but maybe someone that could just convey a bit more than perhaps the other one could. I don't know. It's hard to say, but we'll see. Now, Lucky, he's already unsure of how to even interact with Aiden at this point, and he goes to Sunny for advice of all people. It's a little weird to see him and Sunny interact as well, because they weren't particularly close for the obvious reason that Lucky was a cop when he was in town, and Sunny's a mobster. But Sunny was one of his dad's best friends, so I suppose it's fine that they had a conversation of some sort, and that Lucky seeked him out, I guess. Lucky also shared scenes with Isaiah, and they truly have great friendship chemistry. Hey, Nathan. And I don't know if it's intentional or not because of the story at hand, but I appreciated that Lucky was so uneasy with everyone else in Port Charles. Like I said, his interactions with Jason and Elizabeth and Carly and Sunny, they were all a little bit awkward. And I think it's because the character does not want to be in Port Charles. He spent most of his life kind of running away from Port Charles and staying away for good reasons, or good reasons in his head anyway. But yeah, I think aside from Aiden, I think the person that I'm looking forward to seeing him interact with the most next is Laura, because that's his mom. The first scenes Jonathan had on GH was with Jeannie and Tony. And in a perfect world, like I said earlier, Tony Geary would be back as a ghost or something, just to give his unsound advice to Lucky too. I doubt it'll happen, but a guy can dream. Like, I feel like if anyone can bring Tony back to the show, even just for an episode, it would be Jonathan Jackson. Angel, you said the other Aiden seemed to fit with the rest of the teenage boys in the show. Yeah, that's true. I thought that Aiden, Rocco, Danny, and Jake, from what little we've seen of them, they all had like good chemistry amongst each other. But yeah, it's we'll see what they're gonna get him to do. Now, Jason and Anna are also settling back into Port Charles after their rescue mission and checked in with their besties, Carly and Felicia. And of course, they left one minor detail about their adventure out, their kiss. Carly can tell Jason is hiding something, but he ain't budging. Felicia's pretty oblivious normally, but Anna also has a better poker face, to be fair. So we'll see how long it takes for that truth to come out, if it does at all. It'll be interesting to see Jason and Anna sharing scenes next time and see them discuss what happened. Either that or they'll just avoid talking about it altogether. Now, Holly is back in Port Charles too, and the first person she sees is, it's actually James. And then Mac, and they're both at Maxie's house. Mac and Holly catch up, and he tells her he has a long-lost child with Dominique. And she apologizes for causing tension between him and Dominique because Dominique apparently didn't care for their friendship. Now, that is one story I have zero intel on, and I doubt there's much clips available online to check out either. In terms of Holly, Dominique, and Mac's interactions. But she was clearly around for their relationship. And if I can ever find them, or maybe if you guys know, let me know, and we can react to them sometime. But yeah, anyway, Mac also suggests she doesn't go see Robert because his life is supposedly good right now. And Holly has a tendency to find a way to blow Robert's life up. Robert's got a girlfriend in Diane and a steady job as the DA, so I guess that means his life is good. Sandy, you said, do we really need Holly back? I mean, I love seeing Emma Samms on the show. What they plan on doing with her is anyone's guess. Hey, Albert, you're saying, I'm actually here for Jason and Anna pairing. Love the kiss. Hi, Dion. Hi, everyone. Hi, Albert. I'm not here for it, but I think that Finola and Steve actually work really well together. It's just weird to me because, like, in my head, through, like, their interactions over the years, I think Anna's always had, like, a fondness and sees Jason like family because of his relationship with Robin and how Robin and Jason always remained friends. So, like, it's just weird for me to see anything romantic on that front. But, you know, that's just my take, and I feel like a lot of people feel that way, but if people like them, then people like them. It is what it is. Kaiwani said, I think Holly was with Paul? Sorry? Oh, during the cartel storyline? I don't know. But I'm curious about the Dominique angle with Holly. Loving Jason and Anna because Jason needs somebody that will turn him out of the mob world. Okay, but literally nobody else could. You know what I mean? Like, that's essentially been Jason's story with every romantic interest. That, yeah, like, Anna can, like, pull him on these adventures and stuff, but he's always going to put Sunny first. Albert, you said, I know I'm on an island by myself, so I'm cool with it. You know, more power to you, Albert. Like, I'm not going to judge. I just personally, for my reasons, don't see them as romantic, and it's weird. But, like, it is what it is, you know? There are couples that I have liked that I'm sure nobody cared a rat's ass about on the show. So, you know, I can't blame you. For instance, I loved Lucky and Siobhan even more than Lucky and Liz. And they were a big nothing burger for, like, most people. And then they really ruined them, too, for me, so. And I loved Lucky and Sam. So, you know. I know Lucky and Sam actually did have a fan base, though, and that's probably why Guza ultimately broke them up, because I think people were enjoying Loose Ham a bit more than Liaison, so they, like, put them back with their prospective couples. But I also loved the J-Sam reunion, so I'm not super mad about that either. But anyway, Robert already knows that Holly is back in town thanks to Jack. So even though she avoided temptation initially to seek him out, she almost did, but then she backed off. It only means that he's probably going to seek her out, and I'm sure we'll likely see that tomorrow, judging by the previews. But we'll see. Sandy says, I don't want Jason kissing Robin's mom. That was my reaction to it, like, honestly, Sandy. I was like, really? Robin's mom, Jason? Robin's mom! Dion is speaking blasphemy. Hey, I've always been very open about my love for Lou Sam and for Lucky and Siobhan, so this is not new. This is not new. If I could have a GHMV Reacts Day where I'm just watching the entirety of Lucky and Siobhan's story until the blow up at the end, then I would do it. Did we discuss what Sam said on Instagram? We kind of did last week. She's said more. Personally, it's going to be one of those things that we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Listen, you guys know that I love Sam. I'm upset that the writing has been actual trash for her. Sam has played a character that I've thoroughly enjoyed for a lot of the time that she's been on, no matter who she's been paired with. So, I am upset, and I think that Kelly probably has her reasons for being upset, but I also think that the way that she's kind of handling her exit is not the best. Because while they could leave the door open for Kelly, I think the way that she's threatening all these things to come out, and a lot of it, obviously we can only speculate everything, if Kelly opens up about what went down or her side of the story, where there's three sides to a story. There's going to be her version, there's going to be Frank Valentini's version, which he's not going to discuss, and there's going to be the truth. I think that there's likely pettiness on both ends. Truthfully, we've known Frank Valentini to be petty in the past, all right? We've seen it ourselves. But we also know that Kelly really, threw a fit when Billy Miller left. And yes, his firing was disappointing, to say the least, because they could have done so much with the character of Drew. They really could have. And they opted not to because they just didn't want to keep him. They had their Jason back. And I can see, obviously, the writers are going to put Steve and Kelly back together because Jason and Sam's popularity. But yeah, just saying. I know you get it too. But yeah, Albert. But yeah, it's truthfully, it's my take is that I don't think she's planning to return. Well, she won't. She's not planning to, but I think the issue is the way that she is kind of making GH to be this big enemy is probably just gonna have her not be seen on the show or be asked to be brought back in the future, but also they probably don't want Sam on anymore. They're just gonna kill the character instead of having her death be an open one to get a recast. Exactly, Angel. I was literally about to say, look what happened with Jagger. We know that there's been beef between Frank Valentini and Jagger's original portrayer, and they absolutely trashed the character. They brought a new guy on that looked nothing like him, only to make him just the biggest asshole of life, and just trash his character to oblivion, and then toss him out. There's definitely some pettiness there. So I think that we're seeing kind of Frank do that with Sam, and it's certainly in the way that he's been writing her. But I will say, because this is the one thing, if you guys caught at the beginning of the stream, that I didn't bring up in my notes yet, or that I forgot to type out my notes, but I'm glad you guys are bringing this up, is that we did get to see Sam this week, and she had a surprisingly civil conversation with Jason where she apologized for her behavior and suggested that if anyone gives her a problem about who he is, herself included, to ignore them and just kind of, that was that. It makes me feel like, yeah, Albert, I want to talk about that too, actually. It makes me feel like that was probably her last scene with Steve Burton's Jason and Steve Burton. And we're about to see a whole lot of other final scenes, I'm sure. Yeah, Angel, that's what I'm curious about too, because they kind of very, in a blink and you miss it moment, kind of establish that she's already tried looking for the gun and was unsuccessful in doing so. So we'll see. But yeah, to what you were saying, Albert, I think that the way that she is so willing to just like trash essentially her bosses, and their decision to let go of Billy Miller, because this is clearly where it all sort of goes back to in the beginning. She started kind of making a stink of it when Billy was let go. She wanted to work with Billy. They removed him from the cast and put her with Steve, and I don't think that she hates working with Steve. I know that some people are kind of saying that. I think there's probably like some like maybe slight resentment that he wanted his job back and Billy got screwed over because of that. But I think at the end of the day, like even Kelly knows that like because of their popular pairing, it was inevitable that they were going to put these two back together, whether they fired Billy or not. And I think that her anger is mostly directed towards Frank and their decisions. But I think that another thing is that we've all said it over the years that she was really not bringing her A game to her scenes anymore. Once Billy Miller left out the door, the chemistry wasn't the same between Jason and Sam. She looked bored in her scenes. She was practically phoning it in, which apparently she's even admitted to in the past. So it's like if you're literally just like gonna be miserable and like not cooperate in the storylines that you are a part of, then I can't really blame like Frank and the writers for sort of just being like done with the character. And she said something to the effect that her storyline stopped when Billy Miller left the show. No, it didn't. They put you with Jason. They had you in your own storylines. You were in there with in the cult story for your sister, being like the one investigating. Jason was a side character for that story. Like you had stories, Sam, where you were front and center. And it wasn't until Drew was officially off the show, even though you still had these stories going on, that you like started to dwindle in sort of your the spark that we know Kelly Monaco is capable of bringing to her character. So I don't know, and I'm sure, like I said, Billy Miller passing away unfortunately probably didn't do any better for Kelly's happiness. But my thing is, like, if you were truly unhappy with the show and with the writing and with your character, then it's like it's so ridiculous. It's like you could have quit. You could have quit and found a new job, but now like you're doing all these things and saying all these things that are trashing your bosses, and it's not going to look appealing to any other soap that might be willing to hire you. So yeah, that's how I feel. How do I rate Lucky's return so far? It's it's not the worst. Honestly, I think it's better than what Steve Burton's return was, but in all fairness, Steve's return was very much interrupted by the writer's strike and the writer swap. Like, it was a writer's strike and then a writer swap that all these storylines, or at least his in particular, really got upended. But Lucky's, for the most part, has been pretty boring. They had him away from Port Charles and playing poker for like a month and a half, and it didn't get interesting until Jason and Anna went in to rescue him. Now he's back in town. This is where really the storyline begins for me. I feel like that whole thing was kind of the prelude, and I'm okay with preludes because they have to establish where he's been, what he's been up to. They can't just have him come back. Like they had to make it big, and they tried to, and we got some great scenes out of it, especially the escape from the compound in Africa. But yeah, I'm gonna reserve judgment until we see how this month goes, because now he's back in Port Charles, and we get to see what his storyline will be with Lulu, and what rebuilding a relationship with Elizabeth is going to look like, what his relationship with his son is going to look like, and just see how he sort of gets integrated back into the world of Port Charles, because there are a lot of people that were there in his time that are no longer here. Obviously, he doesn't have Luke, he doesn't have Ethan, he doesn't have Nicholas, so they got to kind of give him like a whole new friends group, a whole new outlook. You know, he can kind of maybe build a friendship with Dante again, because they were close, they were partners in the PCPD. We'll see if Lucky goes to decide to be a cop again. It's hard to say where they're going to go. So I'm going to hold judgment on his return until we see a bit more of him in town now. Angel, you said it does feel like it was retaliation. They watered down her character. Her heart wasn't in it for a while. But this economy is tough, and everyone needs a job, and LA is expensive. Yeah, like I do think that they definitely did water down her character. But I do think that they, you know, her phoning it in, their retaliation was watering her down and making her character really unlikable. Especially when they brought Steve back, you know, after his time on Days. So, or was it Days? Am I right? I think I'm right. But Steve coming back earlier this year, or maybe late last year, whenever it was, it's like, I don't know, they made her really unlikable, and it does feel like retaliation. She did become unrecognizable. There's no, you know, denying that. But you know, it is what it is. You know, there's a certain way that you can go and leave the show and leave on relatively decent terms, so that you're not screwing yourself over for either a return or, you know, chances in other soaps. I mean, like, you know, not to bring up old wounds and everything, but we've seen what happens when someone decides to go scorched earth with the show more than once. And it not only backfires on you coming back to GH, or you yourself as an actor, or getting hired anywhere else, particularly for Ingo Rademacher. You know, we've talked about it in the past, whether you agree or disagree with his politics. I don't think there's any negating or, like, you know, anything that's contrary to the fact that his actions have literally made him blackballed to work anywhere in Hollywood ever again. No one wants to hire him because he thinks that he can trash his bosses and get away with it. And, like, you know, file lawsuits on things that weren't really going to be that big of a deal, that you could have easily just been brought back for, which we know he would have been, because look at Steve Burton. So, like, I don't know. Well, that's the thing. Ingo and Steve were both let go for that reason. They didn't want the vaccine, and it was ABC's right to let them go because that was their policy. So what he did was file a lawsuit, one that he lost, and he has not worked a day in Hollywood ever since. Whereas Steve, he went with grace. He said no hard feelings. He found a job elsewhere like that. He got invited back to the show like that as soon as the guy's contract was up. Whereas Ingo has been doing God knows what ever since, not having a single acting gig ever. Like I said, you can agree or disagree with your politics, or his politics, but at the end of the day, his unprofessionalism screwed him over. So he did not need to file a lawsuit for something that was a temporary motion, which, like, anyone with a brain would have seen it was a temporary thing that was going to be let go as soon as things blew over. So yeah. Albert, you said even if they watered her character down, she still had a job to do in phoning it in. Yeah, exactly. Like, the thing with, like, we've seen characters become unrecognizable and get like next to no story, and just get written to absolute trash. But at those same times, those actors playing those characters that had that treatment, they all brought their A games to the bitter end. The guy that played Jagger, he brought his A game to the bitter end. People like Nell, Chloe Lanier, she brought her A game and just played absolute insanity to the bitter end, like, and killed it with all of her scenes. Same with the girl that played Esme, like, she was fire the entire time. So like like, she did, like, all these people do what they gotta do. They're hired to do a job and to do it well. And if you decide not to do your job well for personal reasons, even if you feel like they're justified, you're still being hired to do the same thing. So if you start acting up while doing your job, then like, then you gotta, like, then take your consequences. And like I said, this is not me. Like, I love Kelly Monaco. I think that she's played a great character, but I'm not blind. Of course, there's gonna be people that are gonna ride or die for Kelly and for Sam, but like, we know that. Let's say, like, I'm like I said, I am not in the Twitterverse. What I'm hearing is that there's like a huge campaign with Kelly's fans trying to sign petitions and have her stay on the show. But on the slim to none chance that works even remotely, like, we're not going to get a different sort of swing at the writing. She's still going to be writing to shit. Like, her character is still going to be bland and awful and backburned. And if they do get forced to put her on the front burner, they're just going to have her be on a lot and be unlikable to the point where people don't want her on the show. And that's pretty much where they've brought the character already. So that's the thing. That is the thing. Albert said, to be fair, Ingo and Victoria on CBS file lawsuits isn't illegal. Well, no, filing lawsuits isn't illegal, but like, I don't know the case with Victoria, but Ingo lost his. So like, and even if he won his, that doesn't mean that GH would be forced to hire him back. You know what I mean? Like, be like, well, we don't want you back now. Like, you tried to, like, you know what I mean? You tried to sue the show for their own policies. It's one of those things where it's like, I like Kelly, I'm going to be sad when the character is gone. I wouldn't put my money into a billboard, but I did sign the petition. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, this, I don't like the petition. Do you think that Kelly's character of Sam would get better writing just because a bunch of people signed the petition that they want her back on the show? Like, if I was Frank Valentini in that sense, I'd be like, fine, we'll put her back, but we're gonna trash the character while she's on. If you're gonna make us keep this girl that we clearly don't want on anymore, we're gonna write her to shit, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can be mad about it. Like, that's where my head would be, because like, Kelly's not innocent in this. You know what I mean? Like, she clearly threw a big tantrum that's affecting her character on the show. And is it petty that Frank and the writing team are trashing the character? Yeah, it's just as petty as Kelly phoning in her scenes because she's not thrilled that her boyfriend's not on the show anymore. Like, that's the thing. That's where I'm at with it. I'm like, you reap what you sow. It'd probably be another Liz situation. Exactly. Like, yeah, they brought Rebecca Hurst online or back onto the show. Did they write her better? Did they give her better stories? Nope. Same old shit. So, like, it is what it is. Kelly has gone. It's a done deal at this point. Yeah, that's the reality of it. But, like, I'm just going on the notion that if it worked, we're not going to see anything better. Sam is still going to be unrecognizable. Kelly's going to still be miserable to be there. She, you know, like, she clearly did not want to be there because of the writing. And the writing will not change just because a petition would keep her on, which it clearly didn't. But if it did, the writing would not change. Albert said, yeah, boom, bam, Albert. If you're a fan of Kelly, you would want her in a show that appreciated her, like, put her on days instead of keeping her on GH, knowing that they're going to write her back. Exactly. Like, if you're a Kelly fan, like, be thankful that she's out of an environment that she was miserable in. Don't force her to stay. Like, I wish her the best. And I hope that she finds an acting gig where she can be happy and thrive and all the good things. Doesn't mean I necessarily follow her, because you know me, I'm like a one-person soap. I will watch The Gates because it's new, or whatever. Is it called The Gates still? It's something Gates. They slightly changed the name, right? I will watch the first episode in the first week or so and see how I like it, but I ain't following the soaps that have been around anymore. Rebecca got hired back to GH, and so did Jeannie, so it could work for Kelly down the line. Yeah, but Rebecca's stories did not get any better. Jeannie, debatable. It's debatable. But Jeannie also has the pull of, like, being solely, well, not solely, but responsible, one half responsible for saving GH from cancellation in the past, to this day being a part of the most watched soap opera episode in history, Beyond the Gates. Thank you, Angel. So, like, Jeannie has other pull beyond her fan base, you know? It's not just that she has her fans. It's that this is a character that more than earned her place on the show and her right to have better stories. And they did give her better stories, to be fair, but they did not do the same for Liz. And Kelly's been on significantly less time than Rebecca, and certainly, you know, for Jeannie Francis. So that's that on that. But we got to get back to the show's storyline. So let's let all that go for now. We'll probably, you know, once we can, if Kelly decides to go, hold on. If you're lucky, you get as much smoke as me and Kyrie has gotten with. If you're saying anything negative about Kelly, so yeah. It is what it is. I'm just being honest. I love Kelly. I wish her the best, but you know, anyone being honest with themselves knows that she's kind of screwing herself here. But anyway, back to the show. Oh yeah, start a YouTube channel, Sandy. Do it up. All right, back to GH. So, someone else is gearing up to leave town in Port Charles. Marshall. He got a gig to go on this really big tour with a quartet as their clarinetist, and he wasn't going to take it because he feels like he needs to be there for Curtis and his family, for moral support because of what TJ is going through. But Curtis feels like the family would want Marshall to be going out there and achieving his dreams and not putting everything on hold for them. So he really convinced him to do it. I think he's still on tomorrow, but we'll see. Trina's also on her way to picking her life back up. She's back in school. She's building a new bond with a new friend in Gio, though their different opinions on Ava nearly put a wrench in their friendship until Joss stepped in to play referee, talk about a heavy-handed, unnecessary plot point. But it is what it is. What can you do? Spencer is currently showing his bare ass on Grotesquerie, so I think it'll be a long time before we see him grace our screens, if at all, with his flourishing career in primetime television, courtesy of Ryan Murphy. It seems the only person in the Ashford clan that is a current state of disaster, aside from TJ, you know, and the grief that he has for recently losing his child, of course. The next hot mess person is Portia, because she had switched Heather's test results to make sure she wouldn't get out of jail. And unfortunately for her, Rick got other tests done in 3 separate labs away from GH, and they all showed that she has a whole lot less cobalt in her system than the GH report let on her. Her vitals are very much different in those 3 tests than they were for the GH one, which he had revealed to Ava, by the way. And Ava's nervousness pretty much became a shoo-in for Rick to figure out that the only person Ava cares about in this matter is Trina, and that means whoever rigged it also has Trina's sort of best interests at heart. So while he hasn't exactly said it, I think it's safe to say that he's got a pretty good idea that Portia is likely, well, we know she's the one who rigged it, but he's probably all but figured it out. Ava even goes to Portia to warn her about it so that she can come up with a game plan before anything comes out. I think it's safe to say we know who Portia's going to pin it on. Portia and Ava's going to pin it on if the truth does come out, that the tests were rigged. Rick has said he's not going to need to do it, but it still could. My guess is that it will. Which leads me to the next plot. Sandy, you said... It was a long segue with Kelly. What can we do? I knew people were going to bring it up, because as long as she's doing things, people are going to talk about it. They want us to talk about it. They want us YouTubers to have our 2 cents about it. Sandy said Heather's always been crazy from day one with the ice pick killer. Yeah, she has. But the story that they're going on with is that her hip replacement caused her to kill... caused her to be a serial killer, even though we've seen her kill long before. Long before that. Steve's ex-girlfriend comes to mind. I hope Portia makes it out of this okay, because I hate Heather. Well, so this kind of leads me to my next plot point. Lucas Jones is back in town. He's now being played by Van Hansis, who again was played by, who played a character on As the World Turns, another openly gay character, and he's an openly gay actor. So it's great. We're finally seeing another actor who is gay that is playing the role of Lucas, and we know him to be a good actor. Lucas will be living with Carly for the time being as he gets settled back into Port Charles, and they've already had conversations about Wiley and Brad and being back in Port Charles while both of them are here, and he is even getting his job back at GH. So this isn't just a visit. Lucas is back and living in Port Charles again. And he has a conversation with Terry when he goes back to GH to kind of have his welcome back interview. And she warns him that Brad is back working at GH, which prompts him to visit Brad instantly to kind of lay down the laws of the land, which went something to the effect of them only speaking professionally when they have to, and him just stating that he won't ever toy with the idea of them getting back together because too much damage was already done. Now, I hope they don't write him off. Write who off? Wait. Oh, Marshall? Wait, no, you wouldn't say that about Marshall. Who are you talking about, Dacarius? I'm curious. Childhood memories. I might tune into that channel. I'll need some throwback for videos for the Wednesday streams again soon. Are you talking about Lucas? I don't think they will. Listen, he's not the only character that's not on contract. For instance, James, who plays Valentine, I don't think he's ever been on contract with the show. But he's had solid storylines for years. And same with Wally Kurt, who's not on contract to GH because he's on contract with the other soaps. So, but he's still around. Might not mean that he'll be a prominent character, but I think he'll be on the show for the time being, as long as he's willing to play him. Now, here's what I think is going to happen while we have him. Hopefully he is here for the remainder, for at least the foreseeable future. But what I think is going to happen is Brad is going to get blamed for the test results of Heather, since he is a lab tech, one who has history with messing with tests, and actually has motive to do it, since Heather did murder his best friend, the former chief of staff, Britt Westbourne. Now, he's going to swear up and down that he's innocent, and I think eventually Lucas is probably going to figure out that Brad is innocent, and maybe the one who ends up getting his head out of the boiling pot of water, so to speak, followed by a slow burn rekindle of their relationship, potentially. Now, do I want to see that necessarily? Not really, but I do think that Brad has changed, and I want to see Lucas flourish with someone else, and I want to see Brad flourish with someone else too, to be fair. But I would love to see Felix with Lucas, personally. We need Felix back. Oh, Wally isn't on contract with Days. Okay, that's fair. So yeah, he's doing both, and like while Ned isn't on prominently, he's still on enough that like his story continues, and it's been like that for years. So I'm not worried about Lucas's story being short-lived, because I don't think they'd bring him back for a guest appearance, but like have him work at the hospital again. You know what I mean? Yeah, I personally love Jonathan Jackson. But yeah, Van's portrayal of Lucas is obviously different from Ryan's. Van kind of plays Lucas with a bit more sass and femininity, and seems a lot more chipper than Ryan's portrayal of the character was. So I feel like Felix and Lucas would be a better fit in terms of chemistry, at least. Brad, while not super feminine, is kind of squirrely, so Ryan's sort of calm demeanor he brought to Lucas really balanced his and Brad's relationship and interactions. But it's early days yet, so for now I'll just go with the flow until we see the true direction of Lucas's story. Yeah, that's how I feel on that. I really hate Brad. I can see why. He doesn't strike me as, well, I mean, I don't think his character is gonna do shady things anymore. I think he knows that he's being really watched, rightfully so. And I think he has motives to want to do good at the hospital, and in Britt's name as well. Like, I don't think he wants to scheme and go back on the things that he's done horribly, because he knows he's got a lot to prove. So I don't see him being a bad character anymore, but I can understand why people hate him. I personally don't mind him. I think the actor is just like funny to watch, and even just like on his Instagram, I enjoy his content that he puts out every now and then. But to each their own. But that's kind of it in terms of the storylines that we saw this week. Like I said, there was only 3 episodes of GH, so there wasn't a whole lot to discuss, which left room for us to talk about Kelly Monaco for like half an hour. But before I end the stream, though, I will say, I'm sure you guys have heard, Ron Hale, who originally played Mike Corbin in the 90s up through the mid-2000s, passed away last week. So this Wednesday, we will do a live stream in honor of him. We're going to, talk about Ron Hale. I'll see if I can find all the quotes from GH cast members about him, or people that he's worked with in the past. And we'll watch some throwback clips of him as Mike as well. It's still like, I think he was 79. It is crazy to this day how many people we've lost in the last like 2 years of GH's like well-known cast members. It's crazy and heartbreaking. Yeah, Ron was on Ryan's Hope as well. Yeah, he's had some, he's had a career and a good one. And he was very loved on GH. And to be fair, the actor that played Mike afterwards really made everyone fall in love with him too. But Mike is still, Ron is still the OG, and we gotta honor him. So we will. We're gonna watch some Mike clips from back in the day and celebrate his life and his legacy on GH this Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. Don't make me teary-eyed again. I won't this time. it's been a few days since we learned that he passed, and to be fair, I think we found out like Wednesday night that he passed away. So there wouldn't have been a live stream till this upcoming Wednesday anyway. But yeah, you know, he is just another person gone too soon, and it's sad, especially when you grow up watching these people play characters that you're invested in for a long time. But we gonna celebrate that, you know. No tears this time. I'll try anyway. Wonder why we didn't see Ron Hale for the Alzheimer's story. Good question. I don't know. I know next to nothing about his life away from the show, whether his health was, you know, not great, or maybe he didn't want to act anymore. It's hard to say. Oh, he retired. There you go. Plain and simple. Makes sense. All right, guys. But yeah, we're going to end the live stream here. Thank you so much for tuning in. So if you want to tune in for Ron Hale's celebration of life stream, we will do that Wednesday. And in the meantime, if you liked this live stream, give it a big old thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to. I'd really appreciate it. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Enjoy your weeks. See you Wednesday, and then again on Sunday for the live General Hospital after show. All right. Good night, y'all. Mwah.